are live. What is going on, everybody? It is Boxing Fanatico episode 51. We are still rolling through these episodes non-stop because we trying to get to episode 100. Let's go over and switch over to my face. What is going on, everybody? Here we are starting it off with Hashim47, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, with the Let's Go chant to start it off. And of course, we can't forget the other legend, Michael Buffer. Let's go ahead and start it off with a Michael Buffer. Let's get ready to rumble.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Let's get ready to rumble is right. We also got Adrian Dones here. Salute Fanatico. What's good, chat? What's going on, guys? Everybody out there? But we got to talk about a few things today. Today, we're going to talk about a few things. One, we're going to talk about this rematch because it was activated. It was indeed activated by Errol Spence Jr. and his team. And Terence Crawford just recently vacated his belts. So that means they're moving to 154. It's going to happen. We're going to get Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence 2. So one of the bigger questions that I'm seeing on the Twitterverse, right, especially people that haven't been on Twitter for a long time, real strong advocates for Errol Spence Jr. That decided to not be on Twitter once he lost and have returned. They've returned now that the rematch has been announced. So, you know, it's the same song and dance. Now what's being said is it's ridiculous to think that Errol Spence doesn't have a chance to win the fight. That's why I posed the question that I posed on the title of this video. Because can Errol Spence actually win the fight? How I feel about it? Yeah, he could win. He could win the fight. It's no different than saying, can Tapales beat Inoue? Sure, he could beat him. It's boxing. Can Ngannou beat Tyson Fury? Absolutely. Yeah, he can. Catch him with a good right hand, and it's over. Anybody can beat anybody. But it doesn't mean that they will. It doesn't mean, can Tapales beat Inoue? Sure. But it doesn't mean that he will. Can Errol Spence Jr. beat Terence Crawford? Sure. But it doesn't mean that he will. Can Ngannou beat Tyson Fury? Of course. But it doesn't mean that he will. That's the point. If it was just all empathy for the fighter having a puncher's chance, then there's no point of predicting fights. There's no point of analyzing the fighters. There's no point in trying to make an analysis of who you think is going to win because it doesn't matter. It's random draw, right? No, it isn't a random draw. It isn't a random draw. We know what's going to happen based on historical data. Does everyone in boxing have a puncher's chance? If a Joe Schmo comes off of the street and faces a pro boxer, can he win? Yes. Of course he can, because everyone has a puncher's chance. But just to say that, well, the rematch matters because everyone has a puncher's chance is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It nullifies the importance of even analyzing any of these fights to begin with. What's the point? You're just rolling dice. What's the point? The point is that anything can happen. Doesn't mean it will happen. All right, Tommy Grams. Let me see here. Tommy Grams, what's going on, brother? Daniel Harry. If Spence, hold on, let me get myself some water. If Spence wins the rematch, I demand the two Warriors end this trilogy in the Coliseum Arena of Rome. Sorry, just watching Gladiator. That movie's fire, though, by the way. Gladiator's fire. Hashim 47, greatest movie of all time for me. Yeah, no, that movie was fire. That movie was fire. And another thing that I'm also seeing being floated around is the Deontay Wilder fight with Fury, and how everyone was like, well, we look at that, right? Look at what happened there. Well, the first fight was decently competitive. The second fight was one-sided, and the third fight was leaning towards Tyson Fury, but with moments that were highlighted by both fighters. They were very even in the sense that Deontay Wilder always had that right-hand power. He always had that right-hand power that was constantly, was a consistent dark cloud over Tyson Fury's head that he had to worry about, that he had to fight around, that he had to take multiple times, which is why he was dropped a few times in the third fight. Are we really comparing what happened with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder to what's going to happen with Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford? Another comparison that I'm seeing on Twitter, this was one of them. The other one is Anthony Joshua versus Ruiz 1. How in the world is that even comparable to Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence 1? Terence Crawford didn't rock him and then finish him. Terence Crawford was beating him throughout the whole fight. If he was groggy, if he was pushing forward, if he had his feet under him, if he didn't have his feet under him, it didn't matter the scenario. He was not outsmarting Crawford throughout the whole fight. We're comparing a fight where the fight ended in the third round, where Anthony Joshua knocked Andy Ruiz down. And then Andy Ruiz rocked him. Andy Ruiz rocked him, and then within that time frame where he was rocked, he finished him off. That's what we comparing to the one-sided dismantling of Bud Crawford to Errol Spence, and we're just going to throw our hands in the air and say it's the same thing? That's the same thing? Come on, man. That you're grabbing at straws. You're throwing spaghetti on the wall and you're hoping one of them stick. That's a night and day orange and apples scenario right there. That's night and day oranges and apples. Anthony Joshua having a competitive third round where he gets rocked and he didn't come back from getting rocked ain't the same as somebody getting beat from pillar to post for the entire fight minus round 1. He was beat to the punch. There was nothing that Errol Spence was doing differently than what he's done before. The issue was that all that stuff was getting countered and he didn't have an answer for when it's getting countered. Because Errol Spence is an elite fighter. Errol Spence is one of those fighters that 99.9% of people will just get overwhelmed by his activity. Crawford falls in that 0.01%. So the rematch is only happening because there was a rematch clause. I need people to understand this. The rematch is only happening because there was an embedded rematch clause in the contract. Had there not been a rematch clause in the contract, there would be no need for a rematch. Now, kudos to Errol Spence. In my opinion, I feel like Errol Spence is his right. It was in the contract. It's his right to try one more time and see if he could beat Terence Crawford. But I'm telling you guys, this is coming from the dude who's on an 8-fight prediction streak right now, by the way, right here on Boxing Fanatico. I'm telling you guys, this fight will be worse than the last one. This fight will be worse than the last one. No hesitation. He's probably going to get him out of there earlier. Because what you guys don't fail to understand, those who are pushing anything can happen, is that Errol Spence doesn't have anything else. And he's not going to learn something new that he's going to be able to instinctually use when things get heated in the moment and pull that stuff off in just a short amount of time when he has stuff that's already attached to his reflexes and like just what he's developed over time. He's not going to be able to insert something that's so new that's going to overwhelm Terence Crawford by the time the fight happens. Everyone is hanging their hat on the fact that he was drained, even though all evidence points to him not being drained, because he's always fought at 147. His entire career, he's fought at 147. His entire career. The fight before Crawford is arguably one of his best performances against a man who beat Manny Pacquiao and Ugas. And even if you want to say, oh, Manny Pacquiao was old, he gave Sean Porter a run for his money. He gave Sean Porter a run for his money. That fight could have been given to Ugas. It could have gone either way. It was a close fight. And Errol Spence dismantled him. One fight removed from the Terence Crawford one-sided win. Listen, when it might sound like I'm trying to be unbiased in this situation, because I am. I don't care for who wins. The only thing that I care about is how I'm predicting who I think would win based off of skill and all these different things and all these different attributes. That's all that matters to me, right? I don't pick a side because I like somebody more than somebody else. I pick a side because I understand that this person has the highest possibility of winning, which is what we did with when they fought the first time. Not only did we decide that Crawford was going to win, we broke down what he did in the fight before he did it. So when I'm telling you that Errol Spence has less of a chance now to win than he did the first fight, I'm saying it because here's a perfect example. Terence Crawford is a adjustment fighter, right? Who's another adjustment fighter that we've seen in the past that does it at an elite level? Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather had trouble with Castillo in the first fight. There was no problem in the second fight. Floyd Mayweather had trouble with Maidana in the first fight. There wasn't no problem in the second fight. Why do you think that is? Why can't it just repeat itself? Why can't it just repeat itself? You know why? Because Floyd downloads your tendencies, downloads your power, so he knows what to worry about, what not to worry about, downloads your speed, downloads your footwork, downloads your range, your comfortable range, your uncomfortable range, the punches that you like to throw, the punches that you throw when you're under duress, the reflexive stuff that you do when he feints, when he doesn't feint, when he hits you to the body, when he hits you to the head. He knows what you're going to do, and you have no hope because you don't know what he knows. You're just going through the motions. And think about this. Those fights were competitive until the second fight. What do you think is going to happen when the fight before the second fight, the dude was not able to do anything at all to Terence Crawford? I'm telling you, this rematch only exists because the rematch clause was embedded. It only exists because the rematch clause was embedded. If the rematch clause was not embedded in the contract, then we would not be having a rematch because there would be no reason for the rematch. The rematch is going to make less money. I'm not trying to rain on, Errol Spence fans' parade. I'm not trying to rain on their parade, but I'm just trying to be honest with you in terms of what we're looking at. This isn't the Anthony Joshua versus Ruiz fight. Those fights were completely different. We talking about a fight where somebody knocked the dude down and he got up, rocked him, and then finished him. Come on, man. That's nothing like this fight. We talking about Deontay Wilder, who has an eraser that every fighter has to worry about at all times, that had a very close fight in the first fight, was dismantled in the second, but then had a closer fight in the third. This was a one-sided beatdown. Do you truly believe that maybe him being a little bit drained was what caused that one-sided beatdown? You think that going up 154, that's going to be the saving grace? He going to be saved going up to 154? If you want to protect your mental health as an Errol Spence diehard fan, because it was a bloodbath. It was a tragedy in terms of how many people were suffering from anxiety after Errol Spence lost to Bud Crawford. Just live in the real world. Don't live in the biased world where you just want to hope and pray, and then you want to use words to make these things materialize in real life. You just want to say the positive things, and you're hoping that that's what happens, because you will be sadly disappointed when this fight takes place. You will be sadly disappointed. With that being said, I'm definitely going to watch that fight. I'm predicting Crawford's going to win. I'm actually adding another layer to that prediction, that he's going to finish him by the 5th round, because he already knows what to do. So, anyways, everyone has a puncher's chance. Wilder's right hand is just different. Yeah, of course. Wilder definitely always has a puncher's chance. But we going on puncher's chance, then there's no point in talking about boxing. Seriously. If we're valuing puncher's chance so highly, where it's like, oh, he could win, the rematch has value because puncher's chance, then there's no point in talking about boxing. We just should watch it. We shouldn't talk about it, just watch it. What's the point of talking about it? What's the point of talking about Shakur Stevenson versus Devin Haney when anybody could win, and it doesn't really matter because anyone could win because of the puncher's chance? Can he win? Sure. Is he going to have enough tools in his tool belt? I don't care if they put a new trainer. I don't care if they put an assistant trainer. I don't care if he does whatever. He actually had the best nutrition, right? in the Crawford fight. For the first time, he paid for the best everything. He paid for to have a nutrition, because before Crawford, he would starve himself to make 147. And he was whipping everybody from pillar to post. But he would starve himself to do it. This is the first time he had a nutritionist, and they landed right on the 147 mark. So it was perfect science. But even with the nutritionist, he was getting beat up like that. So what's he gonna do? Where is it gonna come from? The only way you feel that, and I don't want to sound like I'm offending all these Twitter guys, but the only way you could feel that Errol Spence has a chance of winning this fight, a realistic chance. We're not talking about punches chance, a realistic chance, where he comes in and does something different, and stylistically and technically he starts to win, is if you're biased, number one, or if you just don't know what you're looking at when you're looking at boxing. You don't truly understand what you see when you seeing two people punch each other in the face. Those are the only two possible options. Because you can't be saying, oh, he going to win. Oh, this matters. Oh, the 154 versus 147. If all you're riding on is a puncher's chance. Adrian Dones, the fight was not competitive at all. It wasn't. Like I said, the rematch only exists because it was embedded into the contract. I'm seeing people talking like Bud won't take Errol seriously in the rematch. LOL, they just don't know. Why would Bud not take Errol Spence seriously? He already fought him. You have to understand, when an elite fighter fights another elite fighter, although they made it look easy, it isn't easy. It's this high-speed, high-level kind of thing that they're doing that looks easy, but it's super hard to pull off. If it was easy, everybody would beat Errol Spence. Ugas would have beat Errol Spence. Danny Garcia would have beat Errol Spence. Sean Porter would have beat Errol Spence. If it was easy, everybody would beat him. Somebody making it look easy don't mean that it actually is easy. You think Manny Pacquiao is easy? He's an 8th division champion. He ain't easy. But Floyd made it look easy. Making it look easy don't mean that it's easy to do. It just means that it looks, from the outside looking in, because of the amount of the plus minus in terms of how many punches landed versus how many punches were being landed by your opponent. It looks overwhelmingly for one person. It looks easy. It ain't easy. It ain't easy. Let's not forget that Crawford is pushing 36. He could very well get old overnight in the rematch and still pull off the W. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he could get old overnight. But what are the chances? We talking about stuff like winning lottery tickets. If you buy a lottery ticket, could you win the $1.2 billion? Sure. Are you going to win it? Probably not. Probably not. But can you? Yeah. But why are you going to now sell your home and start financing a mansion, and you're going to buy 17 Ferraris? You're going to get a vacation home after you bought your ticket from the grocery store? No, you're not. Because although you understand that you can win, you are very cognizant that you are more than likely not going to win. The amount, the how much the floor tilted towards Crawford's side was so overwhelming that even if Errol Spence is able to incrementally increase his abilities in the ring some magical way, because like his tendencies are locked. He's been doing it for all his career. It's super hard to get somebody to do something different. You can't just take somebody and just do, and all of a sudden they're going to do more stuff. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't really exist. Like people think, oh, he got to switch trainers and all that. Those things don't really change people. They don't really change people. It doesn't move. They might do a little something different. You might see something that they didn't do before, but they ain't comfortable doing that. It doesn't move the needle. It doesn't really move the needle. But if he even incrementally does something that he feels comfortable, that he could do it under fire, he still won't win against Terence Crawford because the gap was so wide. The gap was so wide. Hashim 47, I think Bud just separated himself from another great fighter in the last fight. I can't see the gap closing by any significant amount in the rematch. Yeah, I literally just said that, yeah. That is literally like word for word what I just said. Because it's true. Because it's true. Geddon's Gaming Corner. I give Spence so much credit. He wants his shot at his get back. Canelo, Loma, and others didn't fight hard enough to get their back from their losses. I'm just saying, what's going on, Geddon's Gaming Corner? But the thing with Canelo is that he didn't have a rematch clause activated, right? So the rematch clause is you're forced, right? Tyson Fury tried to not do what the rematch clause was telling him to do, and they were getting sued. They had to do it. So the rematch clause forces your hand. So Errol Spence has the rematch. He didn't have to really fight to get it. The rematch clause gave it to him by default. Now, kudos to him. He is a warrior wanting to get back in there with Terence Crawford. He's a warrior. He may be slightly delusional if he thinks that he could win, but maybe he's just like, I'm going to go out on my shield full force, full stop. Even though I know that this is going to be an uphill battle and it's probably not going to go my way, I'm still going to try it. I'm still going to attempt it because I'm a man of my word. So kudos to him for all of that. It's just, as a fan watching the sport, I feel like it's a waste of time. But, it's still a super fight. It just didn't need to happen. I'm still rooting for my guy Spence, but I feel that take 100%. Thank you, brother. Thank you. That's because you're an open-minded fan, right? You might be a fan of Spence, but you're not part of a cult. You're not part of a cult. We have to also talk about the Shakur Stevenson turning down $8 million. By the way, we got to talk about Shakur Stevenson turning down $8 million. If they let it happen, you think Manny can win a gold medal at the Olympics? By the way, I put up that video. It doesn't look like anybody cares about that story. Manny Pacquiao going for gold, but Manny Pacquiao is going for the gold medal at the Paris 2024 Olympics. Now, he has to go through a qualification period or setup, and he's checking what that process is. But pro boxers since 2016, have been allowed to compete in the Olympics. They have been allowed to compete in the Olympics. And pro boxers, I know a lot of people are like, that's so unfair. If you let a pro boxer come to the amateurs, they're going to smoke everyone. A bunch of pro boxers have fought already. And they've all done poorly. It's like literally, they're pro boxers, they go to the Olympics, and they've done poorly. The best of the pro boxers who were active that did well was Keyshawn Davis, who made it all the way up to silver medal. So it isn't clear cut and dry because pro is different. You could pace yourself. You could take your time. Depending on what type of boxer you are, if you're a patient boxer, that might work well for you in the pros. But the type of boxer that Manny is, that might work well for him in the amateurs. So I do believe that he probably has a chance of winning the gold medal if he's not too old that he gets beat up by these little kids. But He's also winning the gold medal by beating up little kids. So it's like a double-edged sword of like, I don't know how to feel about Manny Pacquiao going to the Olympics. He's not fighting adults in the Olympics. He's fighting a lot of young people. There's some people that are there that are 30 something or whatever, but for the most part, a lot of these guys are young. A lot of these guys are young. So we're going to have to see what happens, but I'm not like, I don't know how the world will perceive this when it's all said and done. Will it be interesting as heck and everybody's going to be watching the Olympic boxing because of Manny Pacquiao? Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I'm sure there's going to be some loopholes that just let Manny Pacquiao go in to be part of the bracket because it brings so much notoriety to the Olympics. So I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of loop. Like if Manny wants to do it, they'll just let Manny do it. I'm positive. All right, Hugh Jakes, we gotta hit the member. We gotta hit the member. We gotta hit the member real quick. Hold on, I can't hear it on my end. All right, Hugh Jakes, what's going on, my boy? Fanatico, episode 51. I think Spence has a better chance in the rematch, but honestly, don't think he will pull it off. Spence just won't get hurt as bad as he did the first time. What? Interesting. Hugh Jakes, why do you think he has a better chance in the rematch? Why do you think he has a better chance to win in the rematch? What makes you feel that he has a better chance? Is it simply just the weight? Because weight wasn't the issue. He wasn't dealing with weight. He was dealing with being beat to the punch. And I get that people could say, oh, but he was drained. But then where's him being drained when he fought Ugas and completely dismantled him? Why is he drained yet he's throwing more punches than Terence Crawford? Way more punches. How is he drained yet he's the most active puncher in welterweight currently with no one even close to him? He throws more punches per round than everyone else in the welterweight division by a lot. How you doing that if you drained? And those numbers were reciprocated in the Crawford fight, even though he lost. He was throwing punches, wasn't landing much, but he was throwing. And they came up in the Ugas fight. That's his thing. His thing is nonstop punching. How are you a nonstop puncher, but then you're drained somehow? He's the least drained out of all the welterweights. He has the most energy out of every welterweight currently in boxing that steps into the ring. The CompuBox numbers have him as number one most output. Most punches per round over all the welterweights. He's putting up numbers that you see in featherweight and flyweight. He's putting up flyweight numbers in the welterweight division. But somehow he's drained. I don't understand. That to me seemed like it's the person that got the most energy out of everybody. Even if he somehow learned a whole bunch of new tricks, which that's probably not going to happen, but he probably going to learn one or two tricks and they're going to be real flimsy because he don't have them as muscle memory. He don't got them in the back of his brain. He is not rooted in his brain like he's been doing it for years. It's going to be tough. When it gets heated in there, he's going to go back to the same old stuff. Yeah, exactly. Same thing that happened to Wilder. Notice when Wilder was hitting Fury to the body with the jabs, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is good." How long did it take before he just went back to being regular Wilder? Like 2 rounds, and we just got regular Wilder. Why? Because that's the stuff that when stuff is crazy, that's what you default to. And trust me, with Crawford, stuff is going to get crazy. Wes, solid take, but I just know as a man, My guy got to run it back. LOL, props to Bud though. Yeah, he could, he could run it back. He has all the right to do it. He could run it back. I'm just saying that as a fan watching it and just being unbiased and just looking at it and being realistic, right? He don't have a real chance to win. He has the puncher's chance that everybody got. He has a puncher's chance that Joe Schmo from the street got against a pro boxer. He got the same puncher's chance that Tapales has versus Inoue, that Ngannou has versus Tyson Fury. For everybody out there, by the way, that's like, oh, you guys are clowns for thinking that Errol Spence can't win. Like, what do you mean he can't win? Of course he could win. If he does this, like anybody could win or whatever. Okay, cool. If you think that, think that. But I don't want to see you make fun of no fights. I don't want to see you be like, I don't know who that guy is. Who is he fighting? He not fighting nobody because that guy could win too. I don't want you laughing at Tyson Fury versus Ngannou. Don't laugh at that. Because if that's your whole premise that anybody could win and we could all win, then you got to keep that consistent with all fights. Every fight ever made, any fight ever made in the future, it's all a 50-50. It's all anybody could win, so this is a good fight. This fight had value before they fought. Even though I was predicting that Terence Crawford was going to do what he did. But it had value because he ain't do it yet. But after he did that to Spence, we already see how big the gap is. It ain't no different than knowing that the gap is big between Tyson Fury and Ngannou and they going in and fighting. If you laughing at that fight and you think that fight is dumb, then you can't be trying to defend this fight. Because that's an inconsistent take. Getting's Gaming Corner. Still, why didn't Canelo have the clause? He kept saying he's going to rematch him, but never did and never will. Yeah, kudos to Spence. Spence going to get wrecked even worse. Yeah, he is. I don't know. Canelo probably thought he was going to win. He probably didn't want to put a rematch clause in there. You know, there's a lot of reasons. There's not always a rematch clause. His belts weren't on the line, so he didn't really care to, put a rematch clause in there. Oh, we talking about that 25%. Let's go. Oh, and here's another thing. When I heard this story break, I was like, oh, cool. This is going to be my chance to, show everybody that, yeah, I'm a fan of Shakur, but I'm unbiased when it comes to looking at all of these situations. Even when Shakur denied the 25%, initially I was like, this is kind of, he should maybe lean towards taking this or whatever. But I landed on that being such a low number after researching all of the other fights that happened before that. But then we have the $8 million interview with Antonio Leonard's son, right? Who is not James Prince, by the way. But, all of these YouTubers and content creators are going to try to force it. It's his team, but it isn't. It's not James Prince. And I'm listening, and I'm hearing all these people saying like, man, you see, Shakur, my goodness. Right? So I'm like, damn, this is crazy. But me being the researcher kind of guy that I am, I don't go off of the word of any person. I just went and watched it myself. Got to the part where he called in. They started talking about a bunch of stuff that wasn't talking directly about, the fight. Then they got to the fight. And the dude did not give the numbers for the fight. He was talking in a hypothetical. He said they could make double the money if they fight on a later date. So that was probably something that James Prince was saying, hey, look, if he don't want to negotiate with you now, If he's stuck on that 25%, we could let it rest, and we probably gonna make more money later down the line. Because James Prince and Shakur wanted the fight because they petitioned. Yep, like people could call and talk and all that. We know what they did to push for the fight. They put a mandatory position. They petitioned for a mandatory, and a mandatory was granted. The mandatory was granted. And Devin Haney relinquished the belt. He's now a champion in recess, and he's fighting against Regis Prograis, which that fight hasn't been announced yet, which is weird, but he's fighting Regis Prograis. This dude just said, "Oh, look, if they fight, like it's gonna be, they're gonna make more." And he said it like this. He said, "Let's say this. Let's say, rough estimate, 8 million. If they fight next year, it'll be 16 million." All he's doing is giving you an exact hypothetical. That's all he's doing. He's trying to explain it to them because whoever from the Dante's Boxing Nation, those guys that were sitting there, they're clearly trying to be pro Devin Haney, right? So everything he throwing at them, they throwing it back to him. Oh no, this okay, that this okay, that. They're not trying to accept anything that he's saying. Everything is nah. But what about this? But what about that? But what about this? So he's like, all right, I got to make it as clear as day for them. Let's say it's 8 million, right? Next year, it'll be 16 million, something like that. And then everyone ran with that as, oh, it's 8 million that he turned down. And he didn't make 8 million before. That's not what happened. The fight was going to be pay-per-view. The fight was going to be pay-per-view. 25% of the pay-per-view revenue. Do you really believe that Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney was going to sell a bunch of pay-per-views to the point where they can get guaranteed money where he's making 8 million and 25%, 8 million? What's the breakdown for how much Devin Haney is supposed to be getting? If that's 25% of what Devin Haney is getting. Just think about that logically, guys. There will be no return on investment. So the money, the numbers don't even add up. It was clearly a hypothetical. When I heard the 8 million, I'm like, oh damn, he's gonna get 8 million. That's a lot of money. I was ready to be like, oh, this is gonna show how, this is a situation where I could show everybody how I could put my bias aside to make an analysis on what's going on. When I heard that, I'm like, are you serious? This is the most irritating community in the world. The boxing community is the most irritating, gaslighting community I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen gaslighting communities left and right. This one is just mind-blowing to me. If someone is in a cult of liking a fighter, there is nothing that you can do to ever convince them of any wrongdoing from that fighter. Nothing. Nothing at all. They're going to twist and flip and morph and pull and distort everything that they possibly can to keep the narrative going of consistently backing their fighter that they're in a cult with. Guys, don't take my word for it. Go to I think this is the Boxing Voice. Go to this live stream where they said Shakur what happened, Devin Haney and Shakur, I think it's like 4 live streams ago or something like that, 5 live streams ago. Click on it and watch it yourself. Listen to it yourself. Don't even take my word for it. The man is making a hypothetical analysis. He's making a hypothetical analysis on how the money would double. 8 and 16 is a double. He's just saying if it's 8, it'll be 16. If it's 5, it'll be 10. If it's 4, it'll be 8. All he's doing is saying, okay, let's say it's 8, then they'll make 16 to make it an easier explanation for the hosts that were there. Because the hosts that were there were giving him nothing. Because they were so stuck on Devin Haney is right and Shakur Stevenson is wrong. And all of these channels are built. They're built on just echo chamber. They're built on echo chamber. It's so frustrating because you can never really get a true conversation going. They're going to be gaslighting you. Like, there's never going to be a true conversation. That's why the predictions be off all the time. Why do you think their predictions be off all the time? Because they don't predict with analysis of the fight. They just predict with, this is my cult team. Therefore, my prediction says he will win. If they just changed it to, he's who I want to win, and stop gaslighting and pretending and all this stuff. Stop saying, why y'all think Terence Crawford is going to win? Who has he fought? Who has he fought? These are all the same people that were saying Terence Crawford was not going to win. These are all the same people that were saying Terence Crawford was not going to win because who has he fought? Errol Spence is better than him, technically. Errol Spence has better technical skills than him. This is what these guys were saying. The people from the Boxing Voice, all these other channels. Oh, Terence Crawford, he ain't fight nobody. Oh, he fought a Sean Porter that was washed up, that he was on his way out of retirement. Oh, he fought Errol Spence fought a better Sean Porter. Errol Spence fought all these other guys. Who does he fight? He ain't fight nobody. Oh, look at what happened to him versus Mean Machine. They said all that stuff. They said all that stuff to you. You know why? Because they had the blinders on. Because it's a cult channel. That's it. It's just, we're team Errol Spence no matter what. We're team Devin Haney no matter what. And now they doing the same thing. They're going to fall in the same pitfall with Haney and Shakur. Because when Shakur finally fights Haney and completely dismantles Haney, it's going to be the whole thing all over again. Oh, man, Shakur, he did his thing, man. He did his thing. And then 3 days later, there's going to be 17 different excuses of why. Oh, Devin Haney not used to, he had to come back down. He not used to whatever. Like, whatever it is, I hope Shakur goes up to fight Devin Haney. Because if he comes down, that thing is already like locked and loaded for the excuse. It's locked and loaded. So it's super difficult to give the community, because these channels, they just pull their videos up, they put their titles. It's like the read all about it titles, where it's super enticing. Then they go in there and they say, oh, look, this is this. I'm unbiased. This. I'm unbiased. But they're not. And they gaslight a community to believe that. And then they build an entire community of people that are echoing the same things that they said. I went on Twitter, how many people I see just talking about, oh, $8 million, he turned down $8 million. We already knew he was a duck. He turned down $8 million without actually knowing what's going on. Because people don't want to know what's going on. If they're in their cult and their echo chamber, they just going to be team cult. And that's the reason why they get all of their predictions, that they get a lot of their predictions wrong. It's not because they don't know what's going on or they can't see it's because they just team want their fighter. Even if their fighter is going up against somebody and they're going to lose, their team, their fighter, so they're not. My thing is, if they would just be true to themselves and honest to themselves, they could easily just be like, I want Errol Spence to win. I want Devin Haney to win. But they don't do that. They be like, Errol Spence is the better fighter. Errol Spence is this. Terence Crawford don't got the skills that Errol Spence got. And it's all BS. Because when we see the fight, it's none of that. It's none of that. So yeah, guys, basically, the $8 million was a hypothetical. It was not. He was not offered $8 million. It was a hypothetical. You have to ask yourself, if he was offered $8 million off of 25%, how much money was Devin Haney going to get on a pay-per-view that was not going to sell? Devin Haney versus Lomachenko, and you could argue that Lomachenko was a bigger star than Shakur Stevenson, did around 100 and something thousand pay-per-view buys. So where's the math coming in for this amount of money? No one's even cross-referencing the math. They're just going with, $8 million, there's no way. He's ducking. Honestly, trust me, when I heard $8 million, I was literally ready to, let me see what this is about. Like, this is crazy, because this will go against what Shakur said in terms of how much money he was making from the past. And I was ready to come over here and be like, look, this is this and this is that. But when I heard it, I'm like, oh man, they even trying to gaslight the caller that's calling in. You could tell he confused. Like, no, it's not. I'm not saying. All right, I'm not putting words in his mouth. What I'm trying to say is, you could see it in the interview, but they're trying to push the narrative. What would a Frank Martin versus Devin Haney fight look like to you? I think Devin Haney would win that fight. I think Devin Haney will keep Frank Martin at bay. He won't really let Frank Martin come in, and he'll keep him at the end of his jab. That's how I see that fight going. I have to do a little bit more analysis or breakdown of their fights to put that fight together in my mind. But that's the rough idea of what I think that fight would look like if they were to fight. Hugh Jakes, Spence learned his moves from the first one. Nah, Hugh. If he learned his moves, he should have learned his moves from the third round. He wasn't learning the thing also too about Crawford doesn't have moves in the sense where it's like, this is my autopilot thing that I'm going to do. Crawford doesn't fight on autopilot. Crawford is very dynamic. It's adjustment fighting. He fights in doing different adjustments throughout the fight. So the issue is, let's say that he simplifies it in his mind and he just watches the tape back and says, okay, when I jabbed, he was catching and shooting. So maybe I need to feint my jab and go to the body, or feint and go to the body over here, since he's gonna lift this hand up, so I could just feint and go low, or see what I could do there. Like, just create counters to all the stuff he saw Crawford was doing as a counter to him, because that's what happens in boxing. But usually this is happening in real time. If a boxer has that deep tool set and that boxing IQ, they'll start noticing it early and they'll start doing it. They'll start doing their counter to the thing that the person's doing to take that away from that person. Then that person has to figure something else out. Crawford is so dynamic that Crawford is going to do something else that will nullify the thing that Spence is doing, that he's using to nullify the thing that Crawford's doing. He's going to do something else, and he's going to put himself in a different position, in a better position, where both things are covered. The jab would be covered, and whatever counter that he's doing would be covered. And if Spence just uses that surface level understanding of, I'm looking at exactly what he's doing and I'm coming with just the counter to what he's doing, he's going to be in for a rude awakening. because Crawford will then adjust, and he will have never seen that adjustment before because Crawford didn't have to do it before. And then he's going to be even more befuddled. The thing that he came in, those little tool sets that he came in with, to deal with that is going to get overwhelmed. It's going to get overwhelmed. In fact, the only reason Spence didn't get knocked out cold and kept getting up is because he had all the energy and conditioning. Exactly. Look at the beating he took. He was still throwing more punches than Crawford with the beating that he was taking. Still throwing more punches. His conditioning, his energy, he the most energized welterweight in the division. He throws more punches than every other welterweight. You can't sell me on the fact that he's drained. Because if he's drained, every welterweight is drained, including Terence Crawford. Because they don't got enough energy to throw more punches than he does. I think Spence and Bud should fight at 160. I mean, yeah, maybe. It'd probably be better for Spence. I think Bud is much smaller than Spence in the, like, body-wise, in terms of how they carry weight. I think Bud is much smaller. He started, two divisions below 147, while Errol Spence started at 147. So I think Bud is definitely much smaller than Spence, but 160 might be a disadvantage, a little bit of a disadvantage for Bud, but still not enough. Still not enough. I actually think that Bud will move up to 168 if he fights Canelo and will beat Canelo. Now, does that mean that I think that fight shouldn't happen? Absolutely not. It's going to be a good fight. That's a 50-50 type fight on paper. But from my analysis, I do believe that Crawford has enough skills to move up to 168 and beat Canelo Alvarez. So if Shakur was going to get 8, Devin was going to get 24-ish, I can't buy that. Exactly. That's my point, bro. That's my point. Fire, what's going on? Yo, what's up, Fanatico? The Spence versus Crawford rematch isn't even close. Crawford destroys and might even destroy Canelo, as they are talking about fighting after Alvarez versus Charlo happens September 30th. Yeah, Canelo has to get past Charlo, which might not be the easiest thing in the world, but I do see Canelo beating Jermell Charlo. It's just going to be difficult for Canelo to do it because Charlo rises himself up to the level of his competition. And you could tell he does that because of his losses and his rematches. When he loses to someone, you could tell that he took them lightly because the rematch completely separates him from that fighter. So with the way he is, he rises himself to the level of his competition. So if he in his head thinks that the person is not that big of a deal, he's gonna fight with not that much grit and like focus. But when he realizes, like, if the person beats him, that person is that big of a deal, he'll come back and he'll be stronger. But somebody like a Canelo, he knows right off the bat that he's a big deal and he's gonna come in strong. Pride is a hell of a drug. It is, man. It is. When you just proud, man, it just, there's nothing you could do, man, to break their thoughts of who they think is gonna win. I just wish that they would frame it the right way. I want this person to win. I want Errol Spence to win. I'm backing Errol Spence. Like how West 931 does. He says, yo, Spence probably gonna lose, but that's the guy that I want to win. That's the true reality of what all these other guys feel. But because they're content creators, because they're on Twitter and people follow them and they've curated an audience, they got to start gaslighting. Oh, well, Crawford ain't this and Crawford ain't that. Let's not forget, like, we're moving on to the rematch, and now they're saying all these different things, how Spence is going to be strong at 154. But let's not forget, these are the same guys, the same dudes that was saying that Crawford was going to lose, that Crawford didn't have a chance against Spence because Spence beat Danny Garcia and Crawford didn't fight anybody special. Now they just expect us to have amnesia like they didn't say that. Like, we're going to have amnesia. You ain't saying none of that? Like, that Crawford was a nobody? Got his game in corner. Even if he's making up numbers, doesn't the core of the argument still logical? Like, if they did fight and Shakur took 25%, then another fight at a higher weight class would net both. Yeah, that makes sense. That they will make more money later on because the fight will cook more. So yeah, that part makes sense. But the thing that everyone is harping on, Gettins, for this whole Shakur thing, is the fact that he was gonna make $8 million. We don't know if that money. Thank Ketrition Fitness. Oh, Ketrition Fitness. Thank you so much for the subscription. We don't know if that money was like $1 million, right? We don't know what that breakdown was. It's highly unlikely that it would be $8 million. If it's 25%, then Devin Haney is robbing the bank on a fight that's not going to make that much on pay-per-view. So very highly unlikely. All right. Tracy Johnson, Charlo has a puncher's chance. Of course. If we're going on the same logic that everybody's using for Errol Spence, when we already saw what happens when you put Crawford with Spence in the ring. We don't have to speculate anymore. We don't have to predict. We know what happened. But if we're using the same logical consistency of Errol Spence versus Crawford, then yeah, Charlo could be Canelo. Everybody could be everybody. And Ngannou could beat Tyson Fury, and Topolez could beat Inoue. That's how it is, man. That's how it is in this boxing community, which is sad. It's sad. It's like nobody could just be honest. Right? Nobody could just be honest because everything is all about pushing their cult, their curated audience, giving their curated audience what they want. I'm telling you, man, this channel, I'm always is just gonna be the straight and narrow. You might say, oh, the reason you're picking Shakur is because you're a fan of Shakur. But I'm picking Shakur because he's going to win. When I said Shakur was gonna beat Oscar Valdez and make it look easy, and he was going to beat Jamel Herring and make it look easy, he actually did that. So I'm not picking him because I'm a fan of Shakur. I'm picking him because I know that he's going to win those fights. If he fought a fight that I thought he wouldn't win, I would say he's not going to win that fight. With Boxing Fanatico, you guys just get the real, like the real analysis of the fight, not anything where I'm hoping and I'm praying that something's gonna happen. You don't get that here. Thing is, Charlo don't move his head. Yeah. The Charlo is not a slick fighter, right? He's also a action, come forward type fighter. Just like Spence is the same thing. He's an action, come forward type fighter. Spence needs to pivot, moving in and body shot, then headshot. I think he needs to figure out a way to deal with the catch and shoot, because his jab is his entry. He angles. He tried to angle, but the thing is, Crawford was taking the angles away from him because Crawford was stepping to the side. So he needs to figure out how to use his jab efficiently. I think the best thing for Spence to do would be to add feints to throw off Terence Crawford. And he has to add realistic feints, not lazy feints. He needs to add realistic feints where it looks almost identical. The beginning portion of that sequence looks almost identical to what it would look like if he was actually committing to a jab. Because Crawford is too intelligent to fall for lazy feints. I think the feints is what's going to help him, because that's really the main thing that Crawford took away from him was the jab. He kept catching and shooting. He kept beating him to the punch with the jab. So he really needs to clean up how he uses the jab to get inside. And I think if he could do that, he might have a little bit of a chance. But the problem is Crawford, again, he's an adjustment fighter. So once Spence does that, this is not like surface level. Once Spence does that, Crawford will then take that away from Spence. And then Spence has to figure out from the new thing that Crawford is doing, what else can he do And it becomes overwhelming when somebody can adjust consistently like that. Because if, let's say Spence, it takes him like 8 rounds and he finally finds out what he could do to overcome that thing that Crawford just adjusted to, Crawford will adjust again. And now 3 things will be taken away from Errol Spence. 3 things. It's a very difficult thing to fight adjustment fighters like Floyd Mayweather, like Terence Crawford. Anyways, guys, we're going to go ahead and end the show here. We hit 8 o'clock, but we're about 5 minutes after. But it's all good. It's all good. AP, whatever was going on, brother. We got the flame emojis. All right. Until the next one, guys, every Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time. Guys, if you haven't hit the like on your way out, it helps the channel. People watch the videos even after. The last live that we did, episode 50, got a bunch of views way after the live. Like, it wasn't live anymore, but people were flooding in to watch those videos. So that still helps the channel. So if you can, hit the like on your way out. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Hit the notification bell. Hit all notifications so you know exactly when we go live and when we put out videos. Sometimes we put out videos in between going live. All right. Until the next one, guys, I will see you on Monday. Peace out.